Welcome friends to a review of the 2024 Ford Mustang EcoBoost Premium. This press car also comes with the performance package, so we have the Brembo brakes and the Magnarite dampers as well as other performance updates. But let's just go ahead and let's quickly get into my driving impressions, because there are a lot of improvements with the S650 Mustang that I appreciate. This has now become an even better daily driver than it was in the past. But there is still one issue that persists from the previous generation, and I'll be sure to talk about that in great detail. But let's start out with the good first. One of the big improvements is going to be with the steering rack. The steering feels a lot more precise than it did in the past, and I also like the shape of the steering wheel as well. It's a bit smaller, and I do like the flat bottom as well, and the perforations on the side. So steering, fantastic update. Brakes are excellent, as one would expect. Every Mustang that comes with these Brembo brakes, they always have phenomenal stopping power. And for 2024, we do not have the high-performance EcoBoost engine anymore, but compared to the previous generation, the regular EcoBoost, they do make an additional 5 more horsepower. So we have 315 horsepower and 350 pounds-feet of torque. And I'm not an EcoBoost hater. This engine is totally fine for those who love the shape of the Mustang and they truly want to daily drive this vehicle and get decent fuel economy all at the same time. I believe this vehicle, it's rated to get about 21 in the city, 29 out on the highway, and those fuel economy numbers, they're pretty accurate. And it's a big step up from the V8 fuel economy. And if you know yourself and you know you're not going to drive these cars hard, and you're not going to be flooring it all the time and listening to that sonorous V8 engine, then the EcoBoost is going to serve a lot of people well, because you do have effortless thrust around town. Step on it, and it is certainly quick, and it continues to build the power even at the top end, which is impressive for a turbo engine. But really the best way to enjoy this turbo is to just ease into the throttle. Just half throttle maneuvers is really all you need to do with this vehicle, and the car just surges off without any issues. But compared to the high performance model from before, can you notice a difference? Yes, the previous high performance Mustang did feel a bit quicker still than what we're experiencing here, but not by a whole lot. It's just a subtle difference in speed. This is still excellent for the streets. And the Mustang for this generation, the EcoBoost, it weighs about 3,500 pounds, a little over 3,500 pounds, and compared to the previous gen, the curb weight has gone up by about 100 pounds, which is not terrible. And the overall length of this car has increased by ½ an inch. So not a drastic size difference or anything like that. In fact, perhaps even the extra additional curb weight that's been added to this car, maybe it went towards the sound deadening, because this feels like a much quieter driving experience than the previous generation, the S550. This is truly an excellent daily, and that's where the S650 sets itself apart from before. Out on the highway, this vehicle is genuinely refined. You don't get a whole lot of wind noise and tire roar. In fact, if you swapped out these tires to like a Michelin or a Continental, this vehicle could probably get quieter still, and that's really impressive. But much like in the past, this continues to feel special at every speed. Okay, you can just be doing the regular speed limit, 35, 45 miles per hour, and the vehicle feels special at those speeds. I love cars that are able to do that, and that's what gives certain cars a timeless quality. Like, you can own this car for like 5 years and not really get tired of it. Out on the highway, you don't have to be doing ballistic speeds. You can just be cruising at 70, 75 miles per hour, and you can feel satisfied and happy doing that speed. It's a great cruiser, and this S650 has gotten even better as a daily driver compared to before. And the stability out on the highway, it's very good at your regular highway speeds, but once you truly start to do higher speeds, then you begin to notice the car is a tad bit nervous, but I forgive it because this is the regular EcoBoost. Perhaps something like a Dark Horse is going to feel ultra solid at higher speeds. I would really like to check out that particular model. But no, the EcoBoost is going to serve the consumer who's interested in this really well. And I get it. We do have here the performance package. So we have things like the Magna-Ride suspension, and there is a genuine difference between the various modes. We have here normal, sport, track, drag strip, slippery mode, a custom mode that you can put this vehicle into. Sport is not a drastic difference from the normal. The drivetrain just reacts a bit better, but the track mode is genuinely a stiffer mode. Everything becomes extremely aggressive, like the shifting, even the engine sound, all of this gets really aggressive in the track mode. And you actually switch the modes with the buttons on the steering wheel here. I'm in track mode right now. But one thing to note, when you have this vehicle in track mode, the traction control turns off. And the issue that carries over from the previous generation, it's going to be the lack of communication that you have with the front end and the rear end of this car. If you drive this car hard with the traction off and you're not really an adept driver, actually even if you are an experienced driver, honestly, you can really spin out in this car. And the reason why you can easily spin out in these Mustangs is because, yeah, okay, they have improved the steering and the feedback of the steering, but because you have no clue what the front and the rear end are doing, you don't even know where to begin to correct when the vehicle is in a slide. And this is unlike any other rear-wheel drive car I have ever tested. Every other rear-wheel drive high-performance vehicle, it's very easy to slide, it's very easy to fishtail, you can drive it with the traction and the stability control off. And I'm talking about vehicles like the Camaro, every generation of the Camaro, the Challengers, okay, all very easy vehicles to drive and to slide with the traction and the stability off, because you know exactly what the front end is doing, what the rear end is doing. You can easily correct the steering. Same thing with the high performance Lexus products, the RCFs, the LC500s, the AMG vehicles, the BMW M cars, even a Maserati Gran Turismo. All of these cars are easy to power slide and to bring the steering back with the traction and the stability off. Not a problem. You don't even have to be a great driver to hoon those vehicles around. But the Mustang, even if you're an experienced driver, this thing just bites you because you have no idea what's going on. And I thought they would have fixed that for the S650, but clearly they haven't. But not to worry though. You can enjoy this car and drive it spirited with the traction control on. Not an issue. You can drive it hard. You can kind of floor it in the turns, and that's not really an issue. In fact, I prefer the way this vehicle feels, the S650 feels, with the traction and everything on, compared to the S550. The S550 cars, even with the traction control on, it always felt like you were driving on a thin sheet of ice. That sensation has now disappeared for the S650. And I get it, all of these nuanced driving attributes, the people who are into these cars, they don't care. They don't care about the nuances of driving and all of these details I'm talking about. They just care about how quick is it in a straight line and the curb weight and basic things like that. They don't appreciate what I'm talking about here. But I know there's a few people out there who love the Mustang and want to drive it hard, who are going to appreciate this dialogue that I'm sharing with you. So yes, in many ways, this is a big improvement compared to before. The steering for sure is one of them, and you know, like the textures of the road that you're driving over. And we don't have the big, cumbersome round steering from the past. We actually have this D-shaped steering wheel, and it's much smaller, and it's great to grip onto. It's a better daily driver. It's reasonably comfortable, especially in the normal mode. Some of the sharper bumps, you can feel it a bit, but overall, this car does a great job ironing things out. And as mentioned before, it's satisfactory doing all types of speeds. And you can push this car with the traction control on, no issues. And And the EcoBoost engine, I don't really mind it, but the only con I've noticed with this drivetrain is going to be the 10-speed automatic transmission. The only thing that's going to disturb you on an everyday drive is the abrupt shifts that I'm experiencing, primarily at these slower speeds. And sadly, even when you're driving this car hard in the sport or the track modes, the paddle shifters, they don't really respond that well. They're a bit sluggish. That's the only other thing I've noticed. So I would say that the 10-speed auto, not the best, at least the way they have it calibrated in this particular vehicle. And mind you, with the EcoBoost, you can only get it with the 10-speed automatic. You have to get the 5-liter Coyote V8 to get the 6-speed manual. And the manual in the Dark Horse is even better because you get the proper Tremec, and that feels excellent. So EcoBoost is fine, but just keep in mind, you are foregoing one of the best sounding V8 engines available for sale. The 5-liter Coyote, it just sounds so epic. That's really the highlight of the Mustang, and if you're going to skip that, you're missing a lot of what the Mustang has to offer. But once again, if you just like the way it looks and you're just going to put it around town, then sure, get the EcoBoost. But with that established, let's go ahead and talk about the interior space. Okay, let's go ahead and let's talk about this interior space. This is another big highlight to the new Mustang. And let's first start out with these seats. So we do have here the performance package vehicle, but before I get into the actual seats themselves, check this out. This is a big upgrade compared to the previous generation Mustang. Before, this seatbelt would always slide off and you would have to reach like 3 miles to grab your seatbelt. No more of that. The seatbelt no longer slides off because they added this extra leather strap. It's the small things in life, but it really adds up when you live with the vehicle. So that's brilliant. And sure, the seats themselves, they are extremely comfortable, but that's always been the case with these Ford products. And although this is a black seat, the white stitching as well as the white perforations in the middle really add some additional contrast to these seats, which I appreciate. Let's talk about these doors here. First of all, the doors feel nice and heavy. And this isn't just a completely plastic door. On this upper portion here, we have a softer material. Then we have the leather inserts here in the center with that same white stitching. And we have this faux carbon fiber material, which is plastic, just running all throughout the interior space, which I don't mind. It adds some contrast. So your door handle, you have your 3-way memory seats. The window switches, that feels fine. Not much in terms of door pocket space, but that's okay. It's forgivable. And we do have here the Bang & Olufsen audio system. I'll talk more about that in a moment. And we don't have like thicker double pane glass or anything like that, but the insulation of this cabin is perfectly fine as it is. Before stepping inside, we do have this Mustang kick plate here and metal throttle and brake pedal. All right, let's go ahead. Let's step inside. I am 5'11", getting in and out of this vehicle, not too bad as far as sports cars go. The new steering wheel is a massive upgrade from before. I love the size of it. It's much smaller than before, and the shape, when you grip onto the sides and the flat bottom, it adds some texture to the driving because the steering wheel, it feels different in all the different places that you grab onto it. So that's phenomenal, and I do appreciate the perforations on the sides here. And we do have buttons on the steering wheel to access your media and your gauge cluster and your drive modes. Let's go ahead. Let's start up the vehicle. We do have the red push button start. Now, all is not perfect with the new Mustang. Actually, this happened to me a few times. When I started up the vehicle, the main center infotainment screen would not properly start up. And this is where you access all of your HVAC controls, as you can see at the bottom here. So 2 or 3 times this has happened to me. I would start up the vehicle and nothing would happen with the infotainment screen. So that's a big glitch. That's a big issue with at least my test vehicle. Hopefully this has been sorted out in newer models, or there is some type of a over-the-air update that they can do to improve the reliability of these screens. But this is why I hate having HVAC controls implemented into the infotainment screen. But other than that, we do have here this 13.2-inch infotainment tied together with this 12.4-inch digital gauge cluster. And the screens look great. They function just fine. I mean, the infotainment is a bit slow to respond to some of my inputs, but once it's loaded up, it's okay, I guess. See, as you can see, I just pressed the vehicle button there and took a while for it to load up. So this isn't perfect, but I like the way it looks. It looks more premium than before. I appreciate the Sync 4 and its appearance. The gauge cluster, I've never had an issue with that. And this is where you access your drive modes. So you can put it into a lot of modes here: normal, sport, track, drag strip. And as you can see, the animations are perfect. They're quick to respond and no problems. Looks good too. So there you have it. We do have here the automatic headlights, your turn signal stock, your wiper switches, and you do have these paddle shifters here, which, as mentioned in the driving segment, it doesn't really perform that great in the normal mode. You really have to use it in the sport and the track modes to get the most out of these paddle shifters, to get the best response. Something I really miss from the previous generation is the toggle switches. That really gave the previous Mustang interior space some character, but oh well, we just have some buttons to access important things like your auto stop start defeat, your traction control, your Mustang modes, and your other Mustang features that you want to change, like your ambient lighting. And you have a few other things that you can customize when you press on that Mustang logo. You got your hazards, your traction control off, favorites, and your window defroster. Of course, they give you a physical button for that, but I would have also liked to have a physical air recirculation button, but that's also buried into your infotainment, so that's really dumb. Anyway, we do have here a wireless charging pad, which works okay. It does reliably register my device for the most part, but it can sort of slide out of place. Something to keep in mind. As you can see, we have a USB-C and a USB port. Got that as well. The gear shifter, not my most favorite. You almost always end up putting this vehicle into the manual mode when you're in a rush. I would like for them to create an additional space where you can just slide this shifter into the left or to the right to access your manual mode that way, instead of having it all the way down at the bottom here. But put it into reverse. We don't have a 360 camera, but the camera that we do have, it's excellent, high quality, no issues. I'm also not a big fan of this electric parking brake. I mean, it's kind of interesting and it's cool that they have implemented this, but it's not my most favorite thing in the world. You have to press it down to turn off the parking brake. Again, just a weird action. Comment below, let me know your thoughts regarding this electric physical parking brake function. And overall, this cabin, it's a big upgrade over the previous generation. I love the solidity of this interior space. Once again, I appreciate the material choices. Like in the center here, this is not like a hard touch plastic. It's a softer plastic or rubberized material. I don't know exactly what to call this, but we also have like a soft touch leather insert here as well. That's great. And you only have the hard touch plastic at the bottom. The center armrest space is decent. You just have to reach kind of far back, but it's okay. Not bad for a sports car. And got 2 cup holders here. That's a decent size. Glove box, it's a bit crude, that little latch, but once you have it opened up, it's a decent size. You have that carbon fiber-esque material running across, just plastic. And you do have a little Mustang logo there as well. There's a look at the door panel there. One more look at the entirety of this cabin. Again, big step up. The only thing I don't like is the infotainment glitches. Otherwise, the infotainment itself looks fine. Everything works pretty good, pretty ergonomic. Steering wheel, big upgrade. And I appreciate the way they have implemented this little leather strap so it's easier to grab onto your seatbelt. Now, we do have rear seats with the Mustang, just like before, but obviously the legroom is tight, but I just use them as an additional shelf, if you will, similar to a Porsche 911. So some people, they have successfully put their children back here, you know, if you have small kids, but for the most part, they are useless for adults, but they do look nice. And again, it's additional storage / shelf space, so that's fine. All right, now before I talk about the trunk space, I should mention the excellent Bang & Olufsen audio system. That is another big update with this Mustang. It doesn't sound like a generic trashy audio system with the B&O plastered on the speaker grill. No, this sounds like a legitimate audio system. I'm not saying it's the best in the world or anything, but it actually has some punch and some clarity. It's a decent audio system and it's worth upgrading to now for the new Mustangs. And with that established, let's go ahead and let's check out the trunk space. All right, to open up the trunk, you can do it from your key fob. Just press the button twice. There you have it. And the Mustang, it's always had a decent sized trunk for sure. The Camaro also had a decent trunk, it's just that the opening wasn't as wide as the Mustang. Of course, the Challenger had the biggest trunk. The thing was like miles deep, but this is still decent and it's truly excellent for a sports car, or a performance vehicle, whatever you want to call it. And you have enough space to buy a spare tire and put it in the back, but we do have here this fix-a-flat kit. And that's your subwoofer for the Bang & Olufsen audio. It's truly excellent, and you can fold down the rear seats. All right, let's go ahead. Let's reach over, try to fold down the rear seats here. Just pull on that little strap, and the seat comes down. Let's take a look at it from the trunk. It doesn't fold down completely flat or anything, but still, that's practical. The fact that you can even do that in these performance vehicles. There are some front-wheel drive sedans that won't even let you drop the rear seats. So this is excellent for a performance vehicle to be this practical, and that's why so many people, they love to daily drive the Mustang. So with that established, let's go ahead and let's conclude this video. All right, concluding thoughts on the new S650 Mustang. Of course, I am a huge fan of the Mustang, always have been. This vehicle, it's an icon, and I really like the new redesign for the latest Mustang. You can leave your thoughts below in the comment section, but these vehicles, they have presence. And I didn't mention this in the review, but I also really like the paint quality of this particular Mustang. This is called the Iconic Silver, and it's just a free paint option, but it looks great, and I like the finishing of this paint as well. And the interior space, that's also a highlight. You can tell that they've put a bit more effort into this than the previous S550. The cabin feels solid. You have some soft touch materials all around. I like the new screens. They look good. They're easy to use. But as mentioned before, I did notice some glitches with the infotainment itself. On 3 or 4 different occasions, the infotainment simply wouldn't even boot up when I started the vehicle. And there's a bit of lagginess, but that's okay. That's not a big deal. Overall, I hope that these things get ironed out in the future, or I hope that there's some type of a over-the-air update to improve these things. But the Mustang is a nice package. It's also very practical, as we just saw, with the trunk space and the folding rear seats. And I also like the way these vehicles drive. They're great cruisers. The capabilities are there. Like, it's a decent handling vehicle. It's just that when you want to push it and you want to hoon it with the traction and the stability control off, that's the only time where issues arise. When you try to power slide it, it's just impossible to control, unfortunately, because you just don't know what the front and the rear end of this product is doing, at least with these regular Mustangs. I've driven the Shelbys before with 760 horsepower with the GT500. I've drove that vehicle on the track, I've drag raced it, and that is one of the most easiest high horsepower vehicles you can possibly drive. It's predictable, it's communicative, so I'm thinking that's going to be the same story here. I think the Dark Horse and the Shelby stuff, I think those should be proper handling and proper driving Mustangs. You know, being a rear-wheel drive car, you want to hoon it a bit, and the car's got to be predictable in order to do that. Once again, people like to say things like, oh, it's a high horsepower rear-wheel drive car, that's why people spin out in it. But again, when I mention competing products like the Camaro, the Challenger, the Lexus stuff, the AMG Mercs, the BMW M cars, etc., all I hear is crickets. Nobody has any retorts regarding those vehicles and how easy it is to slide around in those performance cars. They are also rear-wheel drive and in many cases make even more horsepower than what these Mustangs have to offer. It's not a matter of high horsepower and rear-wheel drive. Heck, this is the EcoBoost. This has the least amount of power in the Mustang lineup currently, and this is also impossible to control in a slide. Regardless, enough of that, let's move on. Car drives fine when you have the traction and the stability turned on, and I like the improved steering wheel and the steering feel as well. There's another big update from the S550. And since you made it to the end of this video, I just want to help you out and I want to share with you a free resource provided to you by AutoCompanion. AutoCompanion has a free leasing calculator that you can use, and this calculator shows you the interest rate of a lease, the residual values, and the incentives that you can get in your local zip code. And that's the most important thing here. Whether you are financing, paying cash, or leasing, it doesn't matter. You should use this calculator to properly see the incentives that you can get, because incentives stack on top of the dealer discount that you're able to negotiate. With these new Mustangs, I have seen people get like $4,000 to $5,000 off MSRP, some people higher, some people less. You know, with some of these discounts, that's below invoice actually. So yeah, there seems to be some dealerships who are motivated to get rid of these Mustangs, but with AutoCompanion's calculator, there could be additional discounts to be had through the manufacturer incentives. So if you happen to get a 2024 GT manual Mustang, there's apparently a $1,000 bonus cash, so that would stack on top of whatever dealer discount you're able to negotiate. And there's a bunch of other random things as well, so look through it, see what you can qualify for. I just wanted to share with you in case you're negotiating on your own and you wanted to see everything that you can possibly get off the MSRP of this Mustang. And keep in mind the 2025s are just around the corner, and the MSRPs of the 2025 Mustangs are significantly higher than for 2024. It's really sad to say that, because the Mustang was supposed to be a relatively affordable performance car for everyday people, but that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. They've really jacked up the prices, and it's not just the MSRP, it's also the price of the options as well. They've increased that for 2025. But at the same time, I know a lot of people want the latest model year because they think that it's going to be more ironed out, more polished, with less issues, and that makes sense. But understand, you're going to have to be paying a pretty penny for that. And in case you're curious, I mean, I ran some numbers on a $62,000 2024 Mustang GT Premium with pretty much all of the options you would want. And I even incorporated a $7,000 discount, and I included a $1,000 incentive, so about $8,000 off MSRP. The thing still leases for close to $1,000 a month with no money down. That's not cool. The interest rate of these leases, it's over 9%. So definitely don't lease it. Take advantage of some type of promotional financing that either Ford has to offer or what your credit union has to offer. But keep in mind, leasing programs, incentives, interest rates, all of these things, they change every month, and AutoCompanion's calculator will also update every month. So hopefully you appreciate this knowledge, this information, and these resources. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you again for watching. Take care and goodbye.